To the Justice Department Inspector General's report on the FBI's Hillary Clinton email investigation. We're going to go live to the White House.
Plus, President Trump heads to Capitol Hill Tuesday to talk immigration reform with House Republicans. Congressman Joe Wilson of South Carolina with us on what he wants to hear from the president.
Plus, the IG report is being dissected by all sides here in Washington today. We will hear what Republicans, Democrats, and the White House are saying about it and what it means for the Mueller investigation. And thank you so much for joining us on a very busy Sunday on a Father's Day. Welcome to America's News Headquarters from Washington. I'm Elizabeth Pran.
And happy Father's Day to all watching. Thanks so much for being with us. I'm Leland Vittert. President Trump punching back this morning against the media and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer after the Democrat called his meeting in Singapore with Kim Jong-un all cattle and no hat. Garrett Tenney at the White House with details on that and more. Hi, Garrett.
Well, Leland, and that just goes to show it's risky business when a politician from New York tries to use idioms from the ranch. You know, what Senator Schumer was meaning to say was that the summit with North Korea was all hat and no cattle, meaning it was more show than substance. And this came as he was criticizing President Trump for giving up more than he got in this initial meeting with Kim Jong-un. And today, the president fired back at Senator Schumer, tweeting, Chuck Schumer said the summit was what the Texans call all cattle and no hat. Thank you, Chuck, but are you sure you got that right? No more nuclear testing or rockets flying all over the place, blew up launch sites, hostages already back, hero remains coming home, and much more. The big item Democrats are criticizing the president for giving up in his agreement with Kim Jong-un is ending the U.S.'s joint military exercises with South Korea. And today, the president again defended that decision, tweeting, holding back the war games during the negotiations was my request because they are very expensive and set a bad light during a good faith negotiation. Also, quite provocative. Can start up immediately if talks break down, which I hope will not happen. On Fox News Sunday, the top Democrat on the Senate Armed Services Committee said there are serious ramifications for pausing those exercises, particularly in this initial meeting.
It is a big deal. First of all, it was a complete surprise to our allies, the South Koreans and the Japanese. They are very concerned. Second, it is part of our determined, not war-gaming, but deterrence of the North Koreans. And I think also it was interesting that the Chinese were among the first to report the cessation of these exercises, and I think they're going to take a great deal of comfort from that.
And today, the president is spending Father's Day at Trump National Golf Course before a busy week ahead, another busy week, this time focusing his efforts on immigration. Leland?
Immigration and the White House's controversial policy regarding it. Garrett Tenney at the White House. Garrett, thank you. Liz?
Well, President Trump heading to Capitol Hill on Tuesday to meet with House Republicans as two GOP immigration bills head to the House floor this week. Jillian Turner joins us now with what we can expect the president to push for.
That's right, Liz. A congressional delegation of Democrats led by Rep. Gerald Nadler have just wrapped a tour of a detention facility in Elizabeth, New Jersey, where children separated from their parents at the southern border are being held. The delegation had some scathing words for President Trump.
Today, Father's Day, we spoke to fathers whose children have been ripped from their arms, who have no idea when or if they will see their children again.
It is a policy that is unacceptable, unjust, un-American, and unconscionable.
Nadler also calling the facility, quote, inhumane and vowing to bring a Democratic legislative fix to the House floor on Tuesday. And just a few minutes ago, former President Bill Clinton echoing his sentiment on Twitter, writing that on Father's Day, he's thinking of the children separated from their parents. Now, in the meantime, Fox News confirms President Trump will also head to Capitol Hill on Tuesday afternoon to rally Republicans around one of two GOP immigration bills. On the agenda for the meeting are President Trump's big-ticket policy priorities, most notably border security funding, including his multi-billion-dollar request for the wall. Here's Homeland Security Chairman Mike McCaul on Sunday Morning Futures.
I do think this is a historic opportunity to advance a conservative agenda that we've been trying to do for the last 25 years to structurally change the way we do immigration and make it more merit-based.
But Chairman McCaul's Democratic colleagues are continuing to erupt in fury over the administration's separation policy. Steve Bannon jumping to the president's defense this morning, telling ABC News the administration's zero-tolerance policy doesn't require any justification. Other administration insiders insisting by enforcing the separation policy, the president's playing a long game. He hopes to ultimately force the Democrats' hand and increase the chances of reaching a broader compromise on immigration that'll curb illegal border crossings, something he firmly believes is in the best security interests of the nation.
It's certainly getting politicized, so we'll see we'll see what happens this week, especially with the president heading to Capitol Hill and those two bills. So thank you, Jillian. Appreciate it. Leland?
So as the president looks to get a deal in Congress that's tough on the border, Democrats have been blasting President Trump's zero-tolerance policy for separating immigrant families at the border.
None of this can be resolved by angry tweets or by using these families as leverage. Look, you're absolutely right. It's going to be very difficult to get a comprehensive immigration bill in an election year and any year. So let's not tear these families apart in the meantime.
South Carolina Congressman Joe Wilson joins us now. Good to see you, sir. We appreciate it. First things first, are you okay with the administration's policy of separating families at the border?
Actually, this is the Obama policy, and so it's now just been made a political tool, and it's today's political tool. But
Congressman, I appreciate that that's the talking point. It's a pretty simple question. It is up to the administration whether or not they enforce this policy or not. Are you okay with them enforcing it? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely should be enforced, and but for people violating the law and using it's an illegal use of asylum, this wouldn't occur. And so it's but for, and we need to stop people at the border and protect families and protect the young people of other countries, but we need to enforce our borders.
Okay. Part of enforcing the border is money for a border wall, and that is part of either one of these bills that is coming before Congress, either the Goodlatte bill or what is being called the compromise bill. Are you okay with both of them or one or the other?
Well, actually, we need to see the details. I have absolute faith that Paul Ryan has been trying to herd cats. We have a great leader with Bob Goodlatte, Washington Lee graduate, also Mike McCaul. We've got good people who are trying to put this together, and I look forward to seeing the details when we get back tomorrow.
Congressman, as you noted, it's a little bit like herding cats. Why has it been so difficult with a Republican House, a Republican Senate, and a Republican in the White House to get funding for President Trump's marquee issue?
Well, the good news, the funding's not the problem. It's all other issues, whether it be the DACA issue, the issue very important to me of temporary guest workers, the issue important to me of visa overstays. There's so many side issues that need to be addressed.
Clearly, there's a lot of things that are very important to folks. Why has it been so difficult to get a deal when Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House? Is it goes back to that line, it's just like herding cats?
It is. It's herding cats, but again, there's so many issues. The DACA issue itself, the enforcement of the laws. Hey, we've got sanctuary cities that need to be addressed. We've got Democrats who are not going to enforce any law.
Well, but Congressman, we get that there's a lot of issues. It's complicated. That's what governing is. So the question still remains, why has it been so difficult to get a deal? Why should the American people have any confidence that things are going to be different this week than the 4 or 5 or 6 times we've been down this path before?
Well, actually, I agree with you. I don't think this could be necessarily different. And to me, I'm putting a lot of faith in President Donald Trump. Whatever comes up, I look forward to his oversight, to his involvement, and I believe that whatever is achieved, we'll have a president that's going to follow through to protect American families.
So you're leaving open the possibility that there is no deal that comes out of Congress. Both of these bills fail is what I'm hearing you. The president's heading up to Capitol Hill on Tuesday to talk to the Republican conference. You say you have a lot of faith in him and his abilities. What do you need to hear from him in order to get this done?
It would be his analysis of what would be best for the American families to protect American families by securing our border.
All right. Well, we will hear from him on Tuesday. I'm sure we'll hear from a lot of your colleagues following that to see if, as you point out, if it's any different than the past times we've been down this path. Good to see you, sir, as always. We appreciate it.
Well, my honor to be with you on Father's Day.
Thank you. Happy Father's Day to you and yours.
Thank you.
Liz?
Well, we know there's a big week ahead as Michael Horowitz prepares to testify in Capitol Hill this week. House Oversight Committee Chairman Trey Gowdy says bias shown in the Inspector General's report on the handling of Hillary Clinton's email probe actually helps President Trump.
When you have that pervasiveness of bias, yes, it's going to help the person who is complaining about the investigation.
All right, our own Allison Barber is here to break it all down with the very latest. Allison?
Hi, Liz. The Inspector General says former FBI Director James Comey failed to follow established protocols, made serious errors in judgment, and was insubordinate. But when it comes to the Clinton email probe, they say Comey was not motivated by political bias. A big focus for many on the right now are two FBI officials named Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. The pair exchanged thousands of messages. On August 8th, 2016, Page texted Strzok, "Trump's not ever going to become president, right? Right?" Strzok responded, no, he's not. We'll stop it. The IG report says the messages cast a cloud over the FBI's handling of the investigation, but that their review did not find evidence that these political views directly affected the specific investigative decisions they reviewed. But the IG also says they were, quote, particularly concerned about the text messages sent by Strzok and Page that potentially indicated or created the appearance that investigative decisions they made were impacted by bias or improper considerations. Republicans want to talk to Strzok, and some say he needs to lose his job. The top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee isn't going that far, but says the text messages are troubling.
We've been requesting him for quite some time now, and if an agreement is not reached in the next day or so to produce him voluntarily, we will issue that subpoena early this week.
I have never seen this level of bias.
These text messages are very troubling. The fact they were on work email, the fact that they were commingled with emails discussing business, all that's problematic. Again, the IG concluded that none of this affected decision making, but nonetheless, that was completely inappropriate.
Congressman Adam Schiff argued that there's been questionable behavior on both sides of the political spectrum when it comes to this investigation. He told NBC there's an ongoing investigation into possible anti-Clinton bias and leaking at the New York field office. Liz?
All right, Allison Barber with the very latest. A hot topic on the Sunday political shows. For more insight, let's bring in Weekly Standard reporter Andrew Egger. Thank you so much for joining us, Andrew. Like I said, it's a hot topic today. One of the things that I had mentioned before with your notes that you had sent me is that the president is really doubling down on this. Why?
Well, it's really not surprising to see this kind of one way or the other black and white rhetoric from the president. Obviously, he tends to take a sort of binary view of these things, and this report is really embarrassing for the FBI. It shows a lot of, at least bad behavior, if not, corruption and things like that. And so, obviously, it's not surprising to see the president say, it's
I'm
good for them, bad
exonerated.
for
Take
me.
it one step further.
Yeah, right, exactly. He says it's exonerating to him. He says it's discrediting to the investigation. In reality, this report doesn't have that much to do with Mueller. But what it does show is that, the FBI, as it was constituted when this investigation was first getting off the ground, it's very critical of their leadership, very critical of some of their practices. And so you can see where the president might say that this is at least shows or raises questions about how that investigation got off the ground to begin with.
And we've talked a lot about sort of the ripple effect within the FBI and political perception. I'm really curious about who else is getting affected, sort of a ripple effect. Are we going to start to see it impacting members of the House and investigations there as well?
Yeah, I actually think that, the rhetoric from the White House is one thing, but probably the more important impact is going to be what we start to see in the House of Representatives, because while we've seen some members of the House, such as Intelligence Chair Devin Nunes, really ride this hobby horse about how the investigation into Russia got started in the first place. He's been on that for months, but he's sort of been fighting a one-man battle there. And just this weekend, we've started to see that much more broadly, House leadership, House Speaker Paul Ryan, and Trey Gowdy, who we just heard from, meeting with DOJ and FBI officials just over the past couple days and making clear that they need to turn over these documents about how the Russia investigation got off the ground.
That's sort of what I'm curious about, because, and we heard Trey Gowdy this morning, and he said, listen, they have to respond to those subpoena requests. Does this put more pressure on intelligence officials to respond to House investigators, and why?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing is just that this has been going on in House Intel for a long time, but as you know, there's been a lot of questions about bias for them, so DOJ has had some cover to fight back against these. But now, with Paul Ryan saying he's going to bring this up on the House floor, he's going to use the constitutional weapons that the House has in order to force DOJ to hand over these documents, there's absolutely going to be a lot more pressure on them.
And he also mentioned during that interview, you know, Robert Mueller has to know that this is it's fodder, it's ammunition for his political enemies. That's not something that Bob Mueller probably cares about, is it? I mean, yes, he probably feels pressured, but he wants to complete the investigation. He has to do it thoroughly. That's what he's supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I think it's no accident that we still haven't seen people like Ryan and Gowdy really turn the guns on Mueller, because, you know, what's he supposed to do? You know, he's carrying out this investigation the way he's going to. That said, I think that Mueller probably agrees with a lot of, well, at least one of these talking points we've heard from a lot of these Republicans, which is that the quicker he gets this done, the less time this all has to roll on and him take body shot after body shot from the president, right? Clearly, however he comes out in the end, the quicker the better, I think.
And my last question, because you've been covering the White House, is, and we saw the president say this exonerates me, and everyone, you know, this IG report was sort of a separate entity. That being said, it is ammunition for him as well, and I don't suspect that we've heard the last of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is one of those things where, you know, a lot of people want to make this sort of like a good side, bad side thing. And there are people who love the president who hate the FBI, and there are people who love the FBI and hate the president. And it really just doesn't shake down that easily. You know, we've seen a lot of bad behavior here, and that does provide ammunition for the president, which even as you saw, those Democrats were sort of begrudgingly acknowledging that there's conduct there they really couldn't defend, which makes things easier for him.
I'm curious, and before I let you go, just from your coverage, who's the winner and who's the loser in all this?
Well, I think, and this is maybe sort of a cop-out, but I definitely agree with what Trey Gowdy has said, which is that really the only winner is the Inspector General Horowitz, who released sort of an exemplary report. You know, he showed that there still are people at the Department of Justice who are really, you know, just doing their job.
And I think we saw
service.
that from FBI Director Chris Wray on Friday.
Yeah, right. But then obviously, you know, it's to no one's benefit to see this kind of, you know, bad behavior at the FBI. It really hurts people's trust that their national institutions are working for them. So it's definitely a loss for them, and hopefully something that they can take away from going forward, that they need to run a tighter ship.
All right, Andrew, thank you so much. A lot to break down. We're still digesting it over the weekend, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. Of course, plenty more analysis coming up on Fox News Sunday. Chris Wallace will speak with House Oversight Committee Chairman Trey Gowdy. We had a bit of a preview, and that will be right after this program at 2 p.m. Eastern. It's a great interview. You don't want to miss it. Another programming note, special report anchor Bret Baier will host 3 days in Moscow tonight. The show dives into the Cold War era and shows how President Reagan brought the message of peace and freedom to the Soviet Union. That begins at 8 p.m. Eastern tonight.
All right, coming up, how Kansas City is planning to honor 2 officers killed in the line of duty and the families they both leave behind. Plus, a migrant ship rejected by 2 ports. We'll look at how Europe is dealing with their own immigration problems. And shots fired at an all-night arts and musical festival in New Jersey. New details coming out about the victims and the suspects. Brian Yennis on the ground in Trenton. Hi, Brian.
Hi, Leland. 17 people hit with gunfire, wounded. We'll have more as to how an all-night art festival turned into a night of chaos. Next.
Tonight for 2 sheriff's deputies who were shot and killed by an inmate in Kansas City. Deputies Teresa King and Patrick Rohr were transporting a prisoner between the courthouse and jail when the shooting happened. Both deputies were parents. King leaves behind 3 children, and Rohr was the father of 2 young children.
One suspect is dead, and at least 20 people are injured after shooting at an all-night arts festival in Trenton, New Jersey. Our own Brian Yennis is there with all the details. Hey, Brian.
Hi, Elizabeth. Well, it's very much an active investigation scene behind me. This is the Art All Night Festival. It was held at a warehouse here in the historic portion of Trenton, New Jersey. And last night at about 2:50 in the morning, shots rang out and some 22 people were hurt. 17 people were hit with gunfire. And now we know that there are 4 people in critical condition, including a 13-year-old boy who is in, quote, extremely critical condition. Now, this is how we know this started. According to prosecutors, the Art at Night Festival was not the target itself. They believe that this was a fight between individuals and that obviously gunfire ended up hitting in and around this venue. One suspect, a 33-year-old male, is dead. 2 other suspects are in custody. Witnesses describe a chaotic scene. 1 minute they're looking at art and listening to music. The next, gunfire everywhere. Bullets flying everywhere. Again, 17 people were hit with bullets. Listen to the Trenton mayor who spoke about this horrific incident in the early hours. Listen.
It's the fact that our cities as well as our suburbs throughout America are experiencing an increase in public shootings and public unrest such as this. This isn't just a random act of violence. This is a public health issue.
The Art All Night Festival is a 24-hour festival that is free to the public. About 1,500 works of art were here. Artists are able to display their work, including children. It is a bright spot for this community. And again, this all went down at about 2:50 in the morning. The Art All Night Festival released a statement that said in part, quote, "We're very shocked. We're deeply saddened. Our hearts ache and our eyes are blurry, but our dedication and resolve to building a better Trenton through community, creativity, and inspiration will never fade. Not tonight, not ever." Multiple firearms were discovered here at the crime scene. Again, a very active situation there. Also, we saw ATF working on tracking the trajectory of the many bullets that were fired here last night. But again, they're also looking into a carjacking that happened after this shooting, which could be connected to the incident that happened. But all prayers are now for those critically injured, including that 13-year-old boy. Governor Phil Murphy was just here a few minutes ago looking at the crime scene, and he was tweeting, talking about the scourge of gun violence that's affecting these communities and how it has to stop. Liz.
All right, Brian Yanis with the very latest. Brian, thank you so much.
Of course.
After the break, 2 ports reject a ship full of migrants in Europe. What's happening to the people on board and what it means for the immigration debate in Europe. Here at home, Congress takes up immigration reform this week. So what are the chances of President Trump getting funding for his wall?
This is a congressional law from many years ago. It's a crime to enter this country illegally. So if they don't like that law, they should change it.
Welcome back. At least some House Republicans view this week's attempt for immigration reform as likely to meet the same fate as every other attempt. And now some hardliners have a plan to fund Mr. Trump's wall despite a possible failure.
I believe when the appropriations bill comes up in October, and we're really in September now, before when it's going to, I think it's 30th September, and I've said this for a long time. That's why I think people shouldn't go home for the August recess.
You want to shut down over the wall?
I would definitely shut down the government over the wall. Absolutely.
All right, here to discuss on this Father's Day, the voice of Indianapolis, Tony Katz, and Robert Patillo from Atlanta, Georgia. Gentlemen, good to see you. Tony, first to you. This is a pretty bold proclamation by Steve Bannon. You on board with it? What would be about a month before the midterms?
Did you say that was a bold proclamation by Steve Bannon? I didn't realize we were still worried about proclamations by Steve Bannon. Those
well,
days,
ABC News is, so I don't know if we are, or you are, but ABC News is, so go ahead.
ABC News could be thinking about it all they wish. That's totally fine. I think the immigration conversation still has to come down to whether or not we have a border or not. It really has to come down to a much greater open conversation as opposed to the partisan screamings of stealing children out of people's arms and comparing that maneuver of people actually having to follow the law. Tony, we're gonna hold on a second. No. Comparing it to the Holocaust.
Okay, we're going to get Tony. We're going to get to that in a minute. I promise you.
That's all I'm saying.
I promise you, we're going to get to all that in a minute. Meantime, back to the question I originally asked: good idea to be willing to shut down the government over border wall funding or not?
Oh, sorry. The answer is I don't think that's what it's going to come to. The president does want the wall. He does want the money for it. The wall is extremely important to him. It's a matter of symbolism. No question for him. But shutting it down, I don't think we're there yet.
We just had Representative Joe Wilson on the beginning of the program, and he said that despite all the good intentions, he feels as though these two immigration bills, the Goodlatte bill, the compromise bill, are probably not going to get through either. So we'll see if it comes to that. Seems like it very well might, at least if you listen to folks in Congress who are going to be voting on this. Robert, Democrats have seemed to take an obstructionist view on this one. They view this better as a campaign issue than solved. Do you agree with the analysis?
No, I don't. I do enjoy the process of watching Republicans cannibalize themselves and fight over and squabble on the moderate bill and the extreme right bill. Frankly, if they really wanted to solve this issue, what they would do is find a funding mechanism for the wall. Democrats have already, and Chuck Schumer has already said that they're willing to work on the wall, find a path to citizenship for the $1.8 million and also change some policies.
Democrats are not willing to work together with Republicans on anything that would resemble a compromise. It seems as though they've made a decision that this is better to have as a campaign issue.
Well, no, remember, there were meetings between Chuck Schumer and Donald Trump earlier this year. There was Nancy Pelosi was in those meetings. Democrats have attempted to work in good faith on this issue. Republicans in the far right of the Republican Party, not the moderates in the center, but the people who are in safe seats and don't have to worry about October have radicalized this issue. Frankly, if Republicans address this issue, they could effectively end the 2018 and 2020 races.
Speaking of radicalizing an issue, take a listen to Adam Schiff this morning.
What the administration is doing is they're using the grief, the tears, the pain of these kids as mortar to build their wall.
Tony, here is your opportunity.
Listen, Adam Schiff has beclowned himself enough. This is just one more piece of it. There's no doubt that there should be a conversation within the Republican Party. They should be having a conversation about the best ways to go forward on this. But the idea of the tears are used as mortar, and by the way, mortar, he's trying to go biblical there. You're talking about, we're going to get into Passover conversations in a second here. There should be a conversation about what you do with people who come into the country illegally. Are you going to apply the law, or are you not going to apply the law? If the president wants to change a policy, he can. If Congress wants to work to change the law, they can. And you talk about the meeting between Schumer, Pelosi, and President Trump that had no funding for the wall. It was all about DACA. Democrats must accept the reality. This president wants the wall, and he's going to get the funding, or really there's not going to be a movement. You're going to compromise, or you're going to get nothing.
Okay, Robert,
that is the reality. You can't change the way President Trump is on this subject.
Robert, in 15 to 20 seconds, is it worth it for Democrats to keep denying the president funding for his wall?
Well, the president hasn't articulated what the funding is going to come from. For all the fiscal conservatives who have been yelling for years about the deficit, how are you paying for the wall? Explain that to me. Where's the $25 billion coming from that could be going towards supporting our troops, supporting our veterans, supporting poor families? You want to spend it on a wall that won't work.
Supporting the troops. This is a first. Fantastic.
My sister is active duty in the United States Army. I support the troops 100%.
Excellent. Good on you, sir.
Well, and Robert, you have been consistent on that, so I will give you that. Tony, gentlemen,
brilliant.
Appreciate you being here. Tony, happy Father's Day, my friend. You're a good one at that.
Thank you, guys.
Take care. Liz?
All right, great conversation there. A migrant ship that spent a week sailing across the Mediterranean Sea is now arriving in Spain. The ship docking at the Spanish port of Valencia with more than 100 migrants on board. Police say the migrants arriving have 45 days before they must start to resolve their legal situation over in Europe. Italy and Malta had denied entry to the rescue ship last week.
The fallout continues from the Inspector General's report as lawmakers on both sides look forward to hearings with the IG this week.
President Trump doubling down on his criticism of James Comey and the FBI based on the Justice Department Inspector General's report. The president tweeting out this morning his claims of a, quote, witch hunt against his administration. Here with more insight, let's discuss with former Justice Department official Robert Driscoll. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for being here, Liz.
All right, I want to play a soundbite quickly from Rudy Giuliani. He's been on a couple networks. He was on especially this morning. It's about investigating the Mueller investigation. I want to get your reaction. Take a listen.
Not so unorthodox. I mean, it's happened. No, I'm saying the Justice Department should do it. And I'm not really saying the special counsel. I'm saying what led up to the special counsel.
We're getting bogged down with investigations.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not shocked he's doing it as a defense lawyer, but I think at the end of the day, it's time for all this stuff to just get wrapped up, have Mueller make his findings.
Is that why he's doing this then? Just more pressure? Is there any teeth to that?
Well, I think the more this looks like a food fight, the better it is for the president. And I think as the president's lawyer, that's what he's doing. He just wants to make it seem partisan on all sides to, weaken confidence in whatever the end of the report is. So as a defense lawyer, I totally understand where he's coming from. He just wants to make everyone throw up their hands and say, all this is political.
Those on the inside, Bob Mueller, his team, do they care? Do they care at all?
No.
I mean, there's so much pressure for them to wrap up this investigation.
Right.
There's been no leaks. They don't care.
No, they don't, because they know that they'll eventually either lay out a case or not, and they know that they have to prove it if they lay it out. And so I don't think, they're not, I don't think, politically motivated, right. And I think they're just moving forward, and they'll do what they're going to do. Who knows? I mean, from what we know publicly, there may not be much there, but again, who knows?
Trey Gowdy has also been pretty vocal. He was on Fox News Sunday this morning. He said basically, he's never seen this level of bias as a result of the IG report from last week. Are people allowed to have their opinion?
I got to say, as a former DOJ, even a political appointee, I was stunned by the breadth of the misconduct shown in the report and by some of the bias that was evidenced by the agents. I think it's unfortunate. I think it's a sad day for the FBI and the DOJ. It taints way more people than were involved in it. I think that the average line agent doing their job out in the field has nothing to do with any of this, and they end up with a black eye because of what was in there. But I do think partisanship aside, just the level of kind of snarkiness and disrespect of people you're investigating was, I think, something no one wants to see.
Well, that's sort of what, and especially from your standpoint, there are a lot of losers from this report, and a lot of innocent people who don't need to be classified as losing,
right,
simply because of the optics and the trust. And going forward, when there's a whole other parallel investigation, that's frustrating.
And Horowitz mentioned that a cloud was cast over the whole Clinton investigation, and I think a similar cloud's cast, unfortunately, over the Russia investigation and over the Mueller investigation, which got started because of all of this. And whether it's connected or not, public perception will be, I mean, it's kind of like, if you think back to the OJ case, Mark Furman can be a racist and OJ can still have done it, but if you prove one, it helps cast doubt on the other.
Well,
and they might not necessarily be connected.
The president's not, he's not shy when it comes to branding and political spinning. He's a master at that. No one's denying that. If you're Christopher Wray and you're the director of the FBI, how do you right the ship?
I think he's doing what he can do. I mean, he gave kind of an institutionalist response where he, focused on the whole agency and said that most of the agents were not implicated, said they're going to try to do more training and things like that. I think if I were him, what would concern me is the leaking. The leaking that was described in the report was, I mean, they couldn't find out who leaked because there were so many leaks they couldn't identify them all. And there were tickets going back and forth with reporters and concert tickets and meals and things like that seem to be part of the culture. And I think that's more concerning than a rogue agent who went off the rails and had some kind of crazed hatred for the president.
Well, more than 500 pages, we sure learned a lot.
If anyone hasn't read it, I mean, if you take the time to read it, it's stunning. It is.
All right. Robert Driscoll, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Happy Father's Day.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Leland?
Oh, the trash talking before this basketball match was pretty stunning, too. Jimmy Kimmel versus Senator Ted Cruz. $5 grand for charity on the line. We'll tell you how it ended up. Is great.
Well, soccer fans in Mexico City showing the love for their national team while breaking a Guinness Book World Record. 363 Mexican soccer fans wearing green shirts yesterday to honor their
There's
team.
some guy who's got a red shirt on there.
Well, he's got a green overshirt and a red undershirt. I'm not allowed to tell the score because our stage manager is waiting to watch that, so I can't not tell our viewers that. The next game in the World Cup is between Brazil and Switzerland. Kickoff is at the top of the hour on Fox Sports 1. I didn't ruin it there. Did you see that?
Brilliant work there.
Thank you.
Impressive. We will ruin the outcome of this game for you, as Texas Senator Ted Cruz now has bragging rights over late-night host Jimmy Kimmel, this coming after a charity basketball game, and it was dubbed the Blobfish Basketball Classic. If you're wondering why, you can find out on Twitter, and I encourage you to, because the trash-talking before this game was far better than the athleticism of this game. The loser had to donate $5,000 to charity, Cruz beating Kimmel 11-9. Senator Cruz first challenged Kimmel to a game of one-on-one after the talk show host likened Cruz to you guessed it, blobfish.
I will say the smack talking was pretty good.
That was the best part of the game.
It was epic. It was fun. It was funny to watch. Still ahead, we're going to speak to a father-son duo whose advocacy and spirit of service is helping veterans across the United States who don't want to miss this. Stay tuned.
As we celebrate Father's Day, and we mean celebrate, you can check it out on Instagram and Twitter as well, as we have posted pictures throughout the day. One father and son duo are helping the families of fallen U.S. service members. Al and Michael Panetti got involved in the Travis Manion Foundation, some good friends of the show, that is named after a Marine First Lieutenant who was killed in action in Afghanistan.
Al and his son Michael got involved after reading the message of Manion's father about answering a call to service, and they join us both now. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Al, I want to start with you. What spoke to you, especially when you wanted to bring your son in?
Well, it was actually my son who brought me in. When he was in 6th grade, he read Brothers Forever, and he inspired me to get involved after he told me the story of Travis Manion and Brendan Looney and the bond they had and the character that they had throughout their time as friends at the Naval Academy.
So I want to, Michael, I mean, what made you bring in your father, and what are your goals?
Well, I read the book when I was in 6th grade for a book report, and I told my father immediately after because it had a profound impact on me. And as for my goals for the future, I wish to attend the United States Naval Academy one day.
What do you want people to know, especially about the Travis Manion Foundation?
I want people to know that this foundation gives back to the families of the fallen heroes, and I want something that the Travis Manion Foundation does is help better the community. So something that I've tried to do, something my father's tried to do, and my whole community, we just try to make everyone around us better by helping out.
Michael, it is a great book that sort of the Travis Manion Foundation came out of, and we've had them on to talk about it as well. What in that book spoke to you? Did you want to go to the Naval Academy before you read the book? Give us a sense of the timeline here and what you took from the book.
Well, so I always wanted to attend the Naval Academy, but this book just pushed my passion for service. And, you know, I want to be a military man my whole life. So, yeah, it's really how it had an impact on me. Just pushed me forward more.
I'm curious, Al, I want to bring you in. Al, are you starting to see it spread, really, your message, and is there a ripple effect?
Yeah, this message of character and leadership and selfless service that our men and women overseas are giving this nation is what it really is about, and able to get out there and spread this word of character, integrity, and service to our younger members, so to bring them forward and get them out in the community and honor the legacy of the fallen. Not only Travis and Brendan, but for those other service members that have sacrificed all.
Boy, we need more of that.
Yeah, we definitely need more of that. And Al, we're watching some video right now of you in your uniform with the New Jersey State Police. So we thank you for your service as well. And Michael, good luck. Let us know how things progress. You'll be a man to follow for a long time to come.
Thank you very much.
All right, you can see right down there, travismanion.org if you want to help out with that. They also sponsor a team for the Marine Corps Marathon. Shockingly enough, about a year ago, we talked to the Travis Manion Foundation folks about the Marine Corps Marathon. Take a listen.
Joining us next year?
Well, I guess now I'm on the spot, so yes.
All right.
And Elizabeth Pran will, too. If she's there, I got to be there, too.
We got Griff Jenkins running with us.
Here it goes. Go team.
I'm ready.
All right. That sounded an awful lot like...
I don't think that was me. I think that was our stage manager.
Oh, yeah, I see. There will be a poll on Twitter in terms of whether you thought that was Liz's voice or not.
I'm ready to support you, is what I said.
Okay.
The mic
this is what we call spin. There was no spin in the interview you were about to see, as we want to say Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there, including Elizabeth's husband, Darren O'Day. Great dad in so many ways. He took some questions from their 3-year-old daughter, Claire.
The best part about being a dad?
Boy, that's a tough one because there's so many good parts. But it's probably seeing how excited you are that I'm around. That means a lot to a dad. Hanging out with you, teaching you things, and watching you learn and grow up.
There was also some discussions of diapers and other things.
There was, but in all seriousness, she is so excited every time he walks in the door. It's like, oh, mom's here to like feed me and put me to bed and bathe me, and then dad walks in the door, and then mom really no longer exists, which is probably the way it should be because it's pretty sweet. So happy Father's Day to my husband and my dad, and obviously your wonderful father.
Well, Papa Vidit, I don't know if he's watching, but hopefully happy Father's Day out there, and there's going to be more of that interview as well as your reaction on social media as well. We'll live in immortality. Hope you're having a great Father's Day. That's all for us here in Washington. Fox News Sunday coming up with some great interviews as well.
Thanks for joining us.